think that things are working out okay as we are right now. And as I've described to you before, the governance model was kind of like a benevolent dictator, with Netflix being the benevolent dictator. No super formal governance model, but at the same time, what I'm seeing is like enormous user growth. So if you go to the Slack channel, there's like 10% more users subscribing to Spinnaker Slack every single month. So the project itself has gotten to the point where it's, the ecosystem around it is very broad and mature. And there's a lot of people that are starting to kind of line up, wanting to contribute and asking questions about how to contribute. And right now it's still kind of like very, you have to plug yourself in and you have to learn, who is the guy that, calls the shots, and just basically there's no structure. So I think that the next thing that needs to happen, and I believe that this is starting to happen, is that some, high-level governance around how you actually, basically come in, become core contributor, how you run meetups, etc., needs to start emerging.
Okay.
And I've, started to learn, again, just kind of, mingling with the community members, that actually, to some extent, despite my previous statements in the interview we did just a week and a half ago, there is a motion, there is an effort now to actually go ahead and create some basic governance around Spinnaker. So it can evolve into not just this Netflix and Google project, but more of real open ecosystem,
right,
where anybody, any vendor, or any who's passionate about CD space and open source can come in and start contributing.
So my concern was right.
So your concern was right. Yes, exactly. I think that I would say that my statements in your interview are still true, but it only works when the community is only a certain size.
Exactly.
Once it's become like very big and there's vendors starting to get involved, then not just pure users, but vendors, and it's inevitable that vendors will start getting involved. You need to have some high-level governance. It's also important not to overdo it, I would say.
Right. So what has been decided so far? Are you planning to join some foundation, or do you plan to keep it, because governance is a lot of work, sometimes some foundations have a framework to follow.
Yeah. So I think that nothing's been decided other than the need for some sort of structured governance has now been globally acknowledged, and some rudimentary drafts of governance documents started appearing on the Spinnaker wiki, like Spinnaker.io website, as pending for discussion. There is no decisions with respect to it going to a foundation, or I don't think there is, even, structured decisions around, like, is there going to be TC? Is there going to be a board? Is there going to be many different SIGs? Is there going to be a combination? So I think that what's going to happen is that, the community will take a look at, what's happening in the Linux Foundation, and CNCF, in OpenStack Foundation, and then probably in the next 2-3 months, so before the Spinnaker Summit, which is happening in October, there's going to be, some sort of rudimentary skeleton of governance put in place.
Okay, so active discussions are happening, but I think it will take its own evolutionary course, just the way it happened. That now we need something like that.
That's exactly correct, and I think that because it grew out of Netflix, and Netflix is a very big user of it, I think that actually having a community globally acknowledge the need for governance, and Netflix getting into a position where they're comfortable with letting go of a project enough for third-party contributors and other vendors potentially starting to take it on its own path, rather than just kind of it being their thing for their internal consumption. Overcoming that part actually is a big milestone in my view already.
So that has happened at Netflix. They're willing to. Okay.
Yes.
So
yes.
What helped them in understanding this?
I guess we always struggled with there's this great thing that we've built. On one hand, we can just kind of let loose of it and have it take its own shape, and we'll be forever known as the fathers of something that is potentially transformational to the industry. Or do we pursue kind of exclusively our vain interests in having the feature function develop against our internal needs. And it was kind of always, back and forth, but at this point there's so much excitement and there's so much need in the space for something like this that ultimately it aged and moved, towards that side of the spectrum where they're willing to release it.
But that also means that, unlike earlier where they can just push whatever changes or features they need as their own project, now they will have to go through whatever governance model is there, just like any other user.
Absolutely correct. Yes, absolutely correct. And I think this will be a gradual process because given their presence in the community and the number of core contributors and still kind of a thought leadership in that space, it's not going to be like a radical change for them, right? It's not going to be like, oh, now we have governance, now I have to go through the process and ask everybody. They're still the thought leaders, right? They're still the gates. And you've seen that even with Kubernetes and Google, right? It didn't just happen like, they built the governance, but Google's still the largest contributor and they still kind of call the shots on a lot of things, but less so than they did 2 years ago. And I think that we'll see very much similar pattern with Spinnaker.